Oh, hi readers. Welcome back to my channel, Lila Wanders and Reads. Lee here with the squeaky chair, and welcome to my weekend books. If you follow along regularly, you'll know that last week was my first week back filming with my new camera because for about 3-4 weeks, my camera refused to turn on. I think it was a battery issue, but it shouldn't have taken that long to charge. Anywho, I'm still kind of getting back in the swing of things because that time of recording on my phone really threw me off my game. So this one will be another short weekend books, and it's also because I read only 3 books. There has been a lot of chaos going on at work, not in a bad way, just change. And change can be chaotic and disruptive and stressful. And so I started the month with 2 really long books that were just ways for me to settle in, but they both took a week or longer to read, and after that things got really kind of wild at work and I needed stuff that I didn't have to think about. So I've been on that kick and I think I'm finally winding that down, but we'll see. Tomorrow's another day. This week I started with My Roommate is a Vampire, and I'll tell you what this is about before I tell you what I think about it. Cassie Greenberg loves being an artist, but it's a tough way to make a living. On the brink of eviction, she's desperate when she finds a too-good-to-be-true apartment in a beautiful Chicago neighborhood. Cassie knows there has to be a catch. Only someone with a secret to hide would rent out a room for that price. It's like $200 a month, so that's unrealistic anywhere. Big red flag. Of course, her new roommate, Frederick J. Fitzwilliam, is far from normal. He sleeps all day and is out at night on business and talks like he walked out of a Regency romance novel. He also leaves Cassie heart-melting notes around the apartment, cares about her art, and asks about her day. And he doesn't look half bad shirtless. On the rare occasions they're both home and awake. But when Cassie finds bags of blood in the fridge that definitely weren't there earlier, Frederick has to come clean. Cassie's sexy new roommate is a vampire, and he has a proposition for her. Originally, I rated this a 3, but then I think I don't know if I actually have done this, but in my mind, I've downgraded it to a 2. And I have the second book in the series, and I don't think I'm going to read it. I think I'm going to put it in the little free library down the road. And here's why. 1, the ending got a little bit wacky, and I probably could have dealt with that, but I have issues with things that some women feel, even today, are romantic. And a guy, even if he's from the 18th or 19th century, whatever, who gets so angry at seeing a picture of her in her bathing suit on her own phone that he won't speak to her for 2 days is not romantic. It's not gentlemanly. I know that there were decent people living back in those times that aren't fucking pigs. And regardless of how the times were. So I just don't want to read about it. It's not romantic. It's annoying to me. And you know what? If you see a picture of me on my phone in my bathing suit, which I don't own, but that's beside the point, and you get mad at me, I'm not fucking talking to you again either. Bullshit. Anyway, I hate that. I really hate that. Where a man is kind of a bully or gets irrationally angry and the woman thinks that that's romantic. It's not. Girls, red flag. Anywho, you know what's not a red flag? Love Holly by Emily Stone. I've read one other book by her, and it was also set at Christmas and kind of heart-touching, but not in that corny way. It's not heartwarming. It touches your heart. So I have another of her books here at the house, and I looked up 2 more recent ones. The 2 more recent ones seem more rom-com-y, and I kind of digging this Emily Stone. Let me tell you what this is about, and let me tell you up front, I cried at the end. Sometimes it takes a stranger to bring you back to yourself. Ever since a car accident tore her family apart, Holly has been part of a Lonely Hearts holiday letter writing club. Each December, she writes to a stranger who is also spending Christmas alone and receives a letter from another lonely person in return. Usually, the letters go unanswered. That's the point. The letters are anonymous and the senders write whatever is in their heart. But this year, the letter Holly receives is different. Not only is the letter full of a grief she knows all too well, but its writer, Emma, mentions a place that Holly has visited. When she realizes that she might actually be able to find the letter's author, Holly becomes determined to reunite Emma with the estranged grandson, Jack, with whom Emma is desperate to reconnect. When Holly finally tracks him down, she remembers that she's met Jack once before, and the connection was electric. The spark between the two of them is still there until a misunderstanding risks their burgeoning romance and his strained relationship with Emma, too. But Holly is determined. If she can fix Emma's family, she might also be able to fix her own. Though, as it turns out, Holly might have less time to put things right than she thought. This back summary is such a bad representation of this book. I get it, spoilers, yada, 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 but this book is about tragedy and grief and loss and guilt and miscommunication, or we've all been there where you've gotten in a fight with somebody, usually someone that you love, and you don't speak to them right away after that, and then it becomes harder and harder to reconnect. And there's that in here, and loss and forgiveness and so much, and romance and found family and love in general. And I just loved this book. Like I said, I didn't bawl at the end, but I wept. I wept at the end, and this was so touching and so true to life. I have no words, especially after My Roommate is a Vampire. This was a win, 5 stars. I highly recommend this. I highly recommend One Last Gift, which is the other book that I read. It's similar to this. It's been a long time since I read that. And for my third book this week, I was going to read Always in December, but on Thursday, I watched an online program that I had to register for through the U.S. Holocaust Museum called Exploring Holocaust Literature in the Classroom. And they talk about, I'm not a teacher, so some of the stuff I kind of just zzz through, but one portion really leapt out to me, and that was about close reading in the classroom. And it's not really a phrase I was familiar with, but it's something I've done and participated in when I was a student, and hopefully I'll be a student again in the near future. That's neither here nor there. But the individual went through a paragraph in the book, the third book I read this week, and that is Number the Stars by Lois Lowry. And he talks about words, and I made all these connections, and I realized how the author was deliberate in some of her wording, and how they're talking about roots being latticed down the path, and how lattices kind of are braiding together, and they were underneath the leaves, and so it really kind of called to mind the resistance, which was underground during the Holocaust. This was a beautiful book. I love so much about this, and I think I wanted to read some portions for you, but first let me tell you what it's about. If you've not read this, any age. It is 1943, and for Anne-Marie Johansson, life in Copenhagen is a complicated mix of ordinary home and school time, food shortages, and the constant presence of Nazi soldiers. Bravery seems a vague virtue, one possessed by dragon-slaying knights in the bedtime stories she tells her younger sister Christy. As the German troops begin their campaign to relocate all the Jews of Denmark, the Johansons take in Anne-Marie's best friend, Ellen Rosen, and pretend she is part of the family. The girls live like sisters until it becomes clear something more needs to be done to save Ellen, her family, and the Jews of Denmark. In this tale, and this is a fiction tale, but it is based on true events, and the author addresses some of those at the end, and she says, yeah, you think this might be, writers, from the writer's mind. Nope, based on real events, and over and over. In this tale of an entire nation's heroism, the story of the Danish resistance and their plan to smuggle the entire Jewish population of Denmark, nearly 7,000 people, across the sea to Sweden, is told with pride and hope through one young girl's eyes. And, oh God, this is a great part. I can't tell you that I can't read that without spoiling the end. But when I was reading this, I did try to close read. Usually, like when I'm reading Love Holly, I'm not close reading. I'm falling into the story and getting involved in the characters. But I am going to work on that. Here's the part that I wanted to share. And in the end, and this book does a good job of summarizing the story without giving anything away. They talk about the tales that Anne-Marie tells to her sister. And after her sister falls asleep one night, she thinks it was only in the fairy tales that people were called upon to be so brave to die for one another, not in real life Denmark, etc., etc. But ordinary people, like the Rosens and the Johansons, Anne-Marie admitted to herself, snuggling there in the quiet dark, that she was glad to be an ordinary person who would never be called upon for courage. So, and of course, she is, as we all are in times like this. After this, I thought that I would have finished it, but I'm really working this weekend to get some chores done. I ordered a shit ton of spices, and I want them all in like 2 cabinets, so I'm rearranging my kitchen basically. Anywho, so after this I am reading Elie Wiesel's Night. I thought I had started it before, but I guess I didn't finish it. It's only 120 pages, but it is a good follow-up to this, because this kind of is middle grade. Night is not middle grade, but look forward to finishing that this evening. Anywho, normally I put stuff down in the comments, links to the books, etc. I'm tired. I actually took 2 days off this week, tomorrow and Tuesday, because I'm just tired. So I'm going to get this up here and hopefully get my energy back now that things are settling down at work, but not really. Anywho, that is it for me. As always, if you've listened to me babble this long and stuck with me on my journey, happy reading.